Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rakhi. Welcome to my module on managing human resource or human resource management. Before I deep into the third aspect of discipline, I would just like to recapitalize as to what we did in the last one, just to maintain that connectivity. We were discussing about discipline. We know that discipline is nothing but just the adherence to the rules and regulations of the company. We have discussed so far the objectives, the importance of discipline, and above all in the last lecture, if you all remember, I spoke about a very important rule that was propounded by Douglas McGregor in 1960. That is the rule related with the red hot stove rule. And apart from that, a red hot stove rule which says that should be implemented in the case of disciplinary action, that if anybody touches the red hot stove, the action is very immediate. The person will immediately get burnt, and the burn that the person is going to get, it would be consistent and it would be impersonal, and it would serve as a kind of a prior warning and notice to the other people. So is that the case in the discipline also? At any point of time, if any employee commits any kind of indiscipline in the company, then the immediate action should be taken up by the management, which should be very impartial irrespective of the kind of misconduct that has been committed. And of course, the actions or the penalties which are being imposed, they should serve as a lesson for the others to not to commit that kind of mistakes. So today again I'm going to talk about something related with discipline. It's one of the very important topics, so that is why I thought of including in 3 lectures so as to give you the entire view from pin to plane. Now today what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about something related with the causes of misconduct and of course the penalties. So as you can see on the screen also, this is again a chart that has been taken from my book HRM by Dr. Rakhi, and this is a chart which I actually took around 15 days to prepare when I was writing my book. That is just an honest confession. So we know that there can be different kind of causes related with the organizational factors, individual factors, job factors, environmental and others. So why do you think that people actually breach the rules and regulation and policies and procedures that have been formulated by the management for the adherence? Simple practice is like in the case of the organizational factors, there is some kind of unfair treatment or unfair management practices that is done by the management. For example, there can be some policies which can be there to create some kind of fear among people, or at times there can be some kind of autocratic attitude of the supervisors towards their subordinates, and etc. So we are discussing about the organizational factors. The second one is about the wage discrimination. For example, if any discrimination is done on the basis of the caste, creed, religion, language, any other aspect of favoritism, maybe in terms of placement, penalties, rewards, transfer, recruitment, promotion, then naturally it will lead to indiscipline among the employees. Then supposing if there's delay in the payment, naturally nobody would like to get the delayed payments. Harassment by the employees. If supposing workplace harassment is very common, and at times it is not spoken openly in most of the work environments. So harassment at work leads to a very toxic and an abusive workplace, and because of which at times victims, they feel very unsafe and uncomfortable, and hence it can lead to the indisciplined activities by the employees. Then lack of code of conduct. Now code of conduct is basically nothing but it's just a kind of a set of rules which is actually there to outline the responsibilities that one should adhere to. So lack of code of conduct for employees has the potential to disorient them. It would definitely instigate them to adopt to indisciplined activities. Then bad leadership. Absence of effective leadership leads to poor management within the areas of direction, guidance, etc. So at any point of time, if too autocratic leadership is being done or is being practiced at the top level, then definitely people will be not very happy, and definitely at times they will not be happy with the leader or the supervisor, or maybe the leader or the supervisor is not very active in maybe delegating the duties and the responsibilities to the employees, which can definitely lead to indiscipline. Then we've got lack of rules and regulation. This is of course the most important part. If the management fails to jot down the rules and regulation, then definitely people do not have the clarity as to what is expected out of them, and then maybe intentionally or unintentionally they may commit anything that can come under the causes of indiscipline. The next point is mismanagement in promotion and placement. So naturally there are certain cases of misjudgment in the organization where people are being very partial and not very true to the placements and the promotion, which can lead to heated arguments between the workers and the management people. So naturally, at times what happens is that these people whose issues are not solved out, they become more rebellious, and then as a result of it, they start giving rise to the matter of indiscipline. Then absence of effective government mechanism. At times when the grievances or the problems of the people, they are not addressed by the management in a very supportive and a constructive manner, then definitely people become indisciplined. So we also know that the main objective of any discipline is to gain willingness to accept to the rules and regulation standards, procedures which have been made by the company. So it is also very important that there should be some kind of mechanism that should be initiated by the government also, but there is a mechanism, why to lie about it, but of course the process is very cumbersome, very slow and delayed one. So it says that the grievances of the people, they should be addressed as soon as they are identified in the management. Then wrong delegation of authority. Authority means having a power, right, ability of the employees on a specific job. So my dear students, what happens is when there is no proper delegation of authority or there is no proper coordination, which would definitely lead to frustration in the minds of the employees, then people may deny following the rules and regulation in certain situations. Then we've got something which is known as the defective supervision. As you can say, a lot of favoritism and nepotism. Nobody would definitely relish it. So the perspective and the behavior of the supervisor should be such that he is not being very partial to somebody, and right person is given the right kind of job, and of course the right kind of benefits are administered to the people. Then at times here also in the case of organizational factors is like something we can have it known as insubordination, where people stop like following the instructions of the supervisor. So as soon as the person stops following the instruction or there's a refusal to comply with the employer's instruction, then of course there is a case of indiscipline, and definitely it is injurious to both the employees' safety and health as well as for the management. Then there can be certain individual factors. For example, when the rewards are not commensurate with the expectation, people were expecting something else and in return people have got something else. So there is no balance between the kind of efforts that have been put in by the people and the kind of result that they are actually getting. So people react differently and at times they commit indiscipline activities. Then something related to neglectness. People neglect their job or they are careless, they are not focusing, maybe inattentiveness to work, including maybe related with timing, or maybe they are leaving before the work is complete, or maybe the project is not complete but still they are leaving it in the lurch. Things like this, they lead to the cases of indiscipline. Then in the personal factors also, or the individual factors, my dear friends, there can be causes like drinking, excessive alcoholic drinking, or maybe the illness, or maybe excessive sick leave, absenteeism. At times it creates numerous problems for the managers and the fellow employees, and subsequently what happens is that they adopt to the misconduct activities and which is not at all desirable. Then as you can see, sleeping during the work, of course this is not at all acceptable. The main purpose for which you have been recruited, it's get defeated. Then using the foul language, the unacceptable language at the workplace is definitely not at all accepted. It's always acceptable that people behave in a certain manner, which people at times they don't do. Then non-placement of the right person job, this is also a big cause. My dear friends, one of the most important part of the HR is that the right person should be there at the right place, at the right time for the right kind of job. If this principle gets broken, people are not happy and satisfied and they get frustrated, and as a result they adopt to the indiscipline activities. These indiscipline activities, they can be at times intentional and sometimes unintentional also. Then there are loss of TRS, trust, respect and support. Naturally, when you are not happy and satisfied, you are flouting the rules and regulations. So naturally it is hitting, your performance get hit. So naturally people will not reward you, and there would be lack of trust and respect and support also. And at times lack of proper education is also one of the reasons, which is one of the biggest causes of the indisciplinary activities which is done in the organization. So it is always desirable that people are showing that kind of attitude, people are obeying, there is an obedience level, there is some kind of tolerance level that should come up actually from the employees, that okay, they are ready to face or they are ready to work what is expected out of them. If they fail to do so, then naturally there are causes of indiscipline. Then there can be some kind of on the job factors. For example, if any employee is found gambling, or maybe excessive absenteeism, or maybe smoking or spitting, maybe work related pressures. It would be like when an employee fails to reach or maintain a company's work performance criteria, which is actually tied to his or her job responsibilities, it can result in disciplinary action. So too much of work is there, and then the stress levels are very high, and the poor work performance is actually not based on the external factors such as ill health or something like that, but sometimes it is also dependent upon the kind of support and the people that you work along. So at times, because of that, people come to act of indiscipline. Then any kind of dishonesty is definitely detrimental to the interest of the management as well as to the workers or the employees. And for example, as I told you also, that giving the unauthorized information related with the organization, or maybe misappropriation of the funds, all those things, they are all related with the dishonesty part also. Then we have got biased performance evaluation system. Now this is very, very important. Why we are talking about the biased performance system? Because if you remember, we have already done things related with the performance appraisal. So naturally people are putting their efforts to get a good appraisal system. But if people who are appraising you, it can be your supervisor, it can be your managers, it can be your HR people. So if they are partial and if they are not true enough to judge your performance and they give you a poor rating, naturally your motivation level goes down. So as far as the motivation level goes down, it is not at all desirable, and as a result, because of the frustration, because of the irritation, people at times they commit indiscipline acts. Then involvement in criminal activities. Now this is very, very severe, my dear friends. So unauthorized possession of something related to lethal weapons, or involvement of people in a very, very heinous crimes, they may be regarded as a criminal activity, and of course this is a big act of indiscipline. Then there can be some kind of strikes. Now my dear friends, strikes, we know that they are going on a go slow strike, or maybe they are instigating others not to work. So things like this is a part of an indiscipline. So if anybody is caught hold of it, who's striking or staging a protest or instigating others not to follow the work production modules or schedules, whatever it is, then again it's an act of indiscipline. Then falsification of accounts, bad working condition, overloads. These are the again the individual factors which actually are responsible for the act of indiscipline. So this has to be taken into cognizance. Then we have got something related with the environmental factors. Now when we are talking about the environmental factors, since an organization is also responsible to the society, so it's always desirable that discipline is observed by the society, which is actually manifested in the organization. So any kind of discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, sex, color, language is of course which is not at all acceptable. So it says that indiscipline prevails in family, educational institution, political system, religious institutions, breakdown of the social control mechanism, etc., etc. So these are the things which actually cast a very, very ugly shadow on the organizational climate, and because of that the goodwill of the company is also at stake. And as I told you, because of the there's a lot of partiality because of the social and economical pressures prevailing. So at times there are chances of favoritism and other things. Then the other causes of indiscipline, as you can see on the screen also, that it's all related with the neglect of work. People are not interested in working. This can be because of any other reason. People are not motivated. Maybe the things that should be provided by the management in terms of raw material or resources, or maybe transportation, or any other aspect related to the work profile. So people feel that, okay, if the management is not providing such things, why should I do it? So that kind of negative feeling actually creeps in. And at this point of time, only the negative discipline, if you remember that we discussed in the previous lecture, comes into play. Then failure to follow instructions. So naturally, times there can be habitual neglect of workers of not following the instructions, or maybe anything failure to observe the safety instructions as notified by the employer, or too much of interference with the safety is one of the causes of indiscipline. What happens is at times that an employee also refuses to accept the charge sheet. Do you all remember when I was talking about the show cause notice? So once the charge sheet is given to the employee, only then or the show cause notice or charge sheet we call it is given to the person. So once supposing if the committee is there and the committee has actually gone into the entire investigation and they have submitted a report, and then the charge sheet is given to the employee or a show cause notice is being given to the employee, and then the person refuses to accept it, then it serves as kind of an act of indiscipline. So my dear students, these were the above mentioned causes of indiscipline, and these causes of indiscipline they have to be handled effectively by a very effective leader who can actually suit the entire requirement of the attainment of the organizational goal. So if the leader is good enough, so the leader will ensure that none of the employees in the organization, they are resorting themselves to the causes that they are just mentioned on the screen. So if the preventive measures they are actually adopted by the management, so naturally people will be happy and satisfied, and when people are happy and satisfied, they will resort to the self-discipline, and when self-discipline is there, then all these causes they will not come into play, and that is what is actually desirable by the company. So it says that now we all know that what are the different causes. These causes can be related with the individual factors, organizational factors, environmental factors, so on and so forth. So now we understand the concept of discipline better. But now we are going to talk about what kind of penalties are actually given by the company for any of the crimes which have been committed because of the on-the-job factors, individual factors, environmental factors, so on and so forth. So let's have a look at it. So it says that disciplinary actions in HRM is like, it's a kind of a framework which is designed to promote safety or disruptions and compliances with the rules and regulation. If you remember, in the previous lecture we talked about that why are we talking about discipline, because we do not want to have any kind of confusion, we do not want to have any kind of chaos, we do not want any kind of ill-mannered people entering in the company, we want to have a good organizational culture, we want to have a good organizational environment, so on and so forth. Those were the actually motives of having the perfect discipline. So definitely the main purpose of discipline is not to reprimand anyone, but of course to bring about a change in the behavior pattern. That's what we've been talking about since long. So here are actually some kind of disciplinary actions that are taken by the management, and the reasons why they are actually taken, because as we know that we have talked about the red hot stove rule also, the penalties are there. The penalties are very strong enough because these penalties they will help the management to serve as a lesson for others. The others will not follow the same. So one has to bear in mind that these penalties they have to be in consistency with the graveness of the offense. Right? So the graveness of the offense basically means the more the grave the offense is, the greater will be the penalties that would be imposed by the HR department in consultation with the management. So we know that major penalties, this actually includes demotion, dismissal, transfer, discharge, withholding increments, so on and so forth. And the minor penalties, they are related with the oral warnings, written warning, fine, losses of privilege. So my dear friends, if you remember, we were talking about the positive discipline, we were talking about the negative discipline, and also the progressive discipline. So progressive discipline, if you remember, we were moving step by step that okay, the oral warnings would be given first, then the written warnings will be given, then the suspension, and then the dismissal or the termination. So that's a progressive. So is the case here also. It all depends upon the gravity of the offense that has been committed by the employee, and on the basis of the gravity of the offense, then the action would be taken by the management. One has to bear in mind that anyone who commits a very grave offense is not let off by a very minor penalty, and anyone who is committing or has committed a trivial offense is not given too major a penalty. That has to be kept in mind. So again, this is a chart from my own book, HRM by Dr. Rakhi. So here in this chart also you can see that the penalties, they have been categorized into two, the major and the minor. In the case of major, one can be demoted, they can be suspension orders, they can be some kind of dismissal, or they can be some kind of pay cut that can be done by the company. So my dear students, as you can see that on the screen is like we're just talking about the major and the minor penalties. So there can be some kind of oral written warnings, loss of privileges, fines, withholding increments, retaining and reassessment the part of it. Now, in the case of the penalties also, I'll just come back to you. But before that, why are we taking the disciplinary action? This has to be borne in mind, because we are trying to figure out that the rules and regulations that have been actually formulated in terms of anything, procedures, policies, whatever it is, they have to be enforced properly. And of course, to punish the person who has committed any kind of discipline, again, please bear in mind the red hot stove rule. So you know that it will be a kind of a learning lesson for others not to repeat their mistake, to serve as an example, to improve their future behavior. This is very essential, because as I told you, one of the most important part of any discipline action is that the purpose is not to harass anyone, but to bring about a change in the behavior pattern. So in the case of discipline also, that why we are actually talking about the disciplinary action, because we want to bring about a change in this, in his or her behavior. Then function in a team-based environment. If you remember, we have already discussed the concept of team building. So naturally, you will be able to work in a team when you are disciplined. And once we are disciplined, only then the goals can be attained. Then the organizational expectations in terms of 3 Ps. If you remember, it is all related with performance. It is all related with profitability. It is all related with productivity. So all these 3 Ps will be only possible once we are disciplined. To ensure the smooth running of the organization, to increase the efficiency and the productivity, and of course to maintain industrial peace and democracy. So these are basically the reason as to why we are looking forward to the disciplinary action. Now, since we are talking about the disciplinary action, as I told you, there can be some major and minor actions can be taken. But which factors we have to take into consideration? Of course, the gravity, as I told you, to trivial matter. So we have to ensure that if any grave offense has been committed, then too less or minor penalty cannot work. But in case if any trivial offense has been committed, then again too major a penalty should not be imposed. So we have to take into cognizance about the gravity of the act of indiscipline, and then again we have to take a decision that this employee has been committing this indiscipline very regularly. So if it is 1 time, 2 time, you can let it go. But if it is a regular feature, then of course the action has to be taken. Then the duration of time the employee has served. This is also very important. If an experienced employee is there or inexperienced employee is there, this should not make any difference. Reason being, again coming back to the red hot stove rule, again the punishments, they have to be impersonal and consistent with the crime that has been conducted, and it should be immediate. So we do not take into consideration that factor. And how the company has dealt with the similar condition in past, this could be a kind of a reference that can be done. Okay, in past Mr. X has done this, so this action was done. So in present case also, if Mr. X is performing or Mr. Y is committing such kind of act of indiscipline, naturally such an action would be taken. So in the case of unwanted behavior, it's all kind of misconduct, poor performance, absenteeism, insubordination, discrimination, harassment. So this is the unwanted behavior which nobody would like to witness. And then again the disciplinary action can be taken in the form of major and minor penalties. So let's proceed with them straight away. So here one thing is very important, that we are looking forward for the change in the behavior of the person. So if the person has actually committed the offense for the first time, then the verbal caution can be given or verbal warning can be given to the person. But again the same kind of offense is committed the second time, then the written warning, the third time, then the suspension, and the fourth time if the same offense is being committed, then of course there is no room for verbal warning, but the only solution that the company has is all related with the dismissal. So again every person is given a chance for improvement, but if the person fails to improve, then only the actions are taken. So now let's quickly take in at length the different kind of penalties that are actually imposed. As I told you, there are major and minor penalties which are imposed. So In the case of minor one, we understand what is the meaning of oral warning. It's a kind of an informal action which is taken, and employees to be very, very aware about the rules, and of course the opportunity should be given to the person to be heard, and they must be positively motivated for better improvement. So oral warning is just the first form of disciplinary action, where the warning is given not to repeat that mistake, and then it is expected that the people are going to behave in a manner which is going to positively motivate them. The second kind of penalty is related with the written warning. So naturally, if again the task is being done and if more serious offense has been committed than the verbal warning, then we go for the written warning. So naturally, in the case of written warning, the following task has to be done in the step: the reason for the problem, stating the situation not improved after the oral warning. So if get here, carefully, my dear students, the chance was given, an opportunity was given to the person to improvise, but the person failed. So, and again the person is doing the crime for the second time. Then the written warning is given to the person, and warning not to repeat indiscipline, a possible action if similar indiscipline is repeated, then giving chance to defend with a plan of improving them. So, the written warning is like again a little serious one as compared to the oral warning, and a chance is being given to the person to improvise, and then to, of course, to keep a copy of it. Then the third one is related with the suspension. So if the written warning is not sufficient, then the employee is suspended. Now a suspended is again a very, very severe kind of a punishment which is administered to the person. So if the person is suspended, so naturally he may be losing some kind of benefit in terms of money or in terms of increments, whatever. It all depends upon the policies of the company to take a call on it. So if the employees are not improved even after the written warning, then they are suspended from their job. It is a kind of a short-term termination. This is a key word to keep in mind, that it is related with the short-term termination of the job. So here a few things that have to be kept in mind for the sake of suspension. For suspension, written suspension notice for the certain period given to the concerned employee. So naturally this suspension, it cannot be oral. It has to be in black and white. It has to be given in black and white, and information is to be given to the respective HR department or to the notice board, and of course personal record file is also updated related to the person. Then we have got something which is known as the pay cut. So another alternative is to deduct the salary of the employee. Of course this is something which nobody would like to happen. So but this is again one of the kind of penalty which is imposed. So this type of action is only taken when no other option is except the dismissal. So again a chance is being given to the individual for the improvement, and if the person fails, then ultimately there is no other option but to dismiss the employee. So pay cut of course does not bring down the positive of the employee, but this is not at all desirable. So this is one of the negative kind of penalty which is actually imposed. Then we have got something which is known as the demotion. So naturally people will always like to go ahead in life with promotion. So if anyone who has done anything bad and is not improvising in spite of being given a lot of chances, then of course this type of penalty is imposed, and of course this type of punishment is given to the person where the pay cut does not improve the condition, and at times the monetary increments, they are withheld by the company as a part of the disciplinary action. So of course this is all related with the economic aspect, this is all related with money aspect, and nobody would like to definitely lose money at any cost. So even if you're working in an organization, please be very careful not to commit any kind of misconduct which would definitely result in the loss of privileges, or the fines are imposed and your increments are withheld in any regard. But again, one has to bear in mind that all these things, they would be based on the gravity of offense that you actually commit. So at any time, again, the management has to be very, very careful as to what kind of crime or the misconduct has been committed by the people. And lastly, it's like reassignment may refer to the retraining and placing the employee in a more different work environments, and maybe the person may be transferred to a less preferred place. So the transfers to less desirable places can also be one of the the way by which the people, they can be penalized. So my dear friends, that's all I have for you today. So just in a nutshell, to give you a brief idea as to what we studied today, we talked about the causes of the discipline. There can be different causes related with the individual factors, organizational factors, environmental factors, and others. And above all, we also discussed what are the prerequisites that are needed in a disciplinary action if it is initiated by the management, and above all, which are the penalties that are imposed. So with this, we bring an end to the entire topic of discipline. I hope that you have understood the concept of discipline in a more crystal way, and all those people who are watching this video, those who are employed in a organization, maybe a university, institution or organization, wherever you are employed, please, please be very, very careful of not conducting any kind of misconduct, because eventually what happens is that in case if you commit any kind of misconduct or indiscipline act, it is most undesirable behavior of anybody, which will definitely bring a big, big dent on your goodwill as well on the goodwill of the company. So be very careful. Thank you so much and stay tuned for the next one.